Hi, everybody. It's Miss Cole, and I am here to talk to you about a problem that I commonly see in student writing. I've learned that it is rarely, if ever, a bad idea to ask questions to clarify a teacher's expectations. How many sentences should be in a paragraph? How many paragraphs should be in an essay? The short answer, by the way, is not necessarily 5. Something I go back and forth on is how to give guidelines for length requirements on assignments. Should it be based on number of pages or word count? For me, it depends on what the assignment itself is. A shorter piece done in class on notebook paper, I'll probably set at about 15 lines or 100 words. It's about half a page minimum. If we have laptops to use in class, I'll just set it as a 100-word minimum. I don't have to worry about getting something significantly longer because the time that I give to students to work on this assignment is limited. Likewise, our introductory research essay length requirement is essay goes onto a 3rd page, but does not go onto a 5th page. So the minimum is actually not quite 2 full pages, given the MLA style heading and title setup. And there's no word count requirement for the essay itself. Back when essays were expected to be typed out but handed in on paper, students often developed a variety of strategies to stretch out their content to meet the minimum length requirement without actually developing their ideas further. I learned about fonts, leading and kerning, and widow and orphan control in junior high. In high school, I was on the yearbook staff and I was an editor of the school newspaper. I worked as a reporter, section editor, and graphic designer at a newspaper while I went to college. And when I started teaching, I was the yearbook advisor for nearly a decade. In addition, I've read a lot of student work. Therefore, don't bother trying any of the following. Changing which font you use. Changing the spacing between lines, or increasing the point size of spaces or commas or periods, all of which has the same effect. Changing the spacing in between characters. Changing the margins. Writing out all contractions and numbers, or adding filler phrasing. Yeah. Just don't do that. See, none of these strategies actually makes what you've written any better. It just might possibly make it take up more page space. And we can totally tell. The thing is, if you're struggling to meet the minimum for the length requirement, or less commonly, if you're struggling to stay under the maximum, there's a good chance that the reason for that is because there are other problems with your work. So go back to the directions for the assignment. If you've been given a rubric or a checklist, review that. There is a reason the length requirement is set where it's at. This gives you guidance about how much supporting evidence and development your main idea should have, or for a work of fiction, how quickly the conflict should escalate, and whether or not to include subplots or side plots for supporting characters. A novel isn't better than a short story just because it's longer, but the length of the form definitely affects what an author can accomplish and what the reader's expectations will be. Your teacher has provided you with directions that set the expectations for your work, and the length requirement will be consistent with those expectations. Typically, if your work is under the length requirement, you need to add more detail. In an essay, this may mean including more supporting information or being more specific in the descriptions of the anecdotes, or providing more detailed data rather than a general overview. Or it may mean that you need to give a more thorough response to the support you've provided, analyzing its relevance and significance, and illustrating its connection to your thesis statement. The supporting information itself is less important and should take up less of the essay than your reflection on that information. That's where you show your thinking and your understanding, and that's what really makes the essay your work. On the other hand, if you've gone over the maximum for the length requirement, it means you're trying to do too much. You're including more information than is needed from your sources. You have unnecessary details, or ones that aren't particularly relevant. You may be repeating yourself or returning to points you've already made, giving several examples that are all related or similar. The challenge in this case is to prioritize, decide what's most important and most useful, given the parameters for the assignment, and what in your work is least important, or least useful. Then start cutting. This doesn't mean that what you're taking out isn't good or important or useful. It's just less important and less useful than the other information and reasoning that you need to include. In either case, after you've made your revisions, make sure to read through your new draft to make sure that it still flows well and makes sense. Finally, double check for details such as grammar, spelling, punctuation, and formatting. Then take a breath, turn that sucker in, and let go of it. Whether it earns a grade you're happy with or not, you made your writing stronger. And that's not a bad thing. Bye for now, everybody.